Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Join us here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. Angele Suarez and Stephanie Iles were neighbors, both therapists, with teenagers who found some time during COVID to write a book about something they knew very well. Hence the title of their book, Living and Thriving in the Parent-Teen Relationship. So let's talk about what sets your book apart from all the other books out there on this subject.
So for us, this book is a little bit different because this is more about addressing kind of a long-term pattern we've seen. Stephanie and I noticed that young adults just don't seem to have the skills or the what they're needing to be successful when they're leaving home after graduating from high school and so forth. And Stephanie did a brilliant job with her two sons in this area. And so talking about long-term, what that means for parents, it's not a short-term kind of here's how you handle this crisis or here's how you handle this problem, but more about coming up with a relationship with your teenagers so that we're giving them the skills that they need in the long term to be successful independent adults.
It's a little disturbing that you've noticed teenagers don't have the skills they need when they leave their home. Why is that?
Well, this is kind of strange, but the word teenager is barely 100 years old. And the reason it started was back in the early 1900s. Schools became very popular going to high school, and it was the industrial age, so kids were no longer like working on their farms and apprenticing, but they were going to school to learn how to work in the industrial world. And so childhood kind of got extended through high school, and now we're seeing so many people are going to college that even that is being extended. Sometimes you'll talk to a 23-year-old and they'll laugh if you call them an adult. And I'm like, well, you've been an adult for 5 years. You should have been equipped for that. But we keep extending childhood into much later. I mean, things like insurance for 25-year-olds are still under their parents' insurance. We've extended it. And so we parent differently. And I think some of the skills that are lacking is equipping our kids to be independent thinkers, to be critical thinkers, to problem solve. We have too many parents who are as they call them, snowplow parents, or I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of parents showing up at interviews with their kids for jobs.
Okay, so this started, I can tell you, when my kids were in elementary school. The hovercraft parents showing up at school to pick up my kid and finding parents in the hallways. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yes.
Are you peering into the classroom? And why isn't the principal kicking you out? And then as a news reporter later, as my kids were going to college, doing stories and talking to colleges about how, they're asking kids to write their own papers. Their parents are writing their papers. Their parents want phone calls from college.
Right.
So what happened to us? What happened to the parents?
I think sometimes, parents get lost in being a parent and not being like an individual. And so because child has been extended, I think parents overdo it. They don't equip their kids. I mean, I was, grew up Gen X. I was a free range kid. We came home often with the key in our hands. And I started riding the city bus where I grew up in Montreal when I was in the second grade. And here we're so overprotective, we're so fearful. And I sometimes wonder if it's just all the information we get from the internet, just being so overwhelmed with you don't hear about, back when I was a kid, you wouldn't hear what happened in Ohio. But now if something bad happens in Ohio, we all hear about it.
Absolutely.
So I think parents have become more protective.
Well, and social media also has just impacted us in all areas. It impacts our mental health. It impacts our overall relationships and understanding of what they are. And so we don't get the opportunity to really sit back and have conversations with our kids anymore. We're not sitting back and making sure that we're still invested in the relationship and that we're providing them the information from our values and from who we are anymore, or a lot less likely, when they're getting the information elsewhere. Our voice as parents, I don't think, has been transitioned into, we're as important, if not more, which I believe we are, as social media and where you're getting your information from.
Oh, well, I would hope that parents are more important. Maybe you need
They
to
are.
write the book for the parents. Oh, it is a book for the parents, and you have a
It is a book for the parents, yes.
Yeah.
and you have
So,
a recipe here.
We do.
right. So there's a lot of very applicable interventions that we also put in the book. So we were trying to create a book that people could actually like do A, B, C, D, so they could have specific things they could try with their family. Angele's she has a stepson, and he's amazing. And part of her connection with him is she does this great thing every Sunday. They do like screen-free Sundays where they set aside all their like digital stuff, and as a family, they spend a day.
That's a great idea.
Right. It is. It was just to have an experience. It's to make sure we stay connected. It was just to show that family's more valuable than any of our screens. My husband and I are just as guilty of being on the internet or, doing our different screen time as well on the phone, and making sure that we haven't lost our priority and teaching our son that he's our priority.
Right. Right. Well, it's just like the kids were all doing video games. My kids, there was certain times during the day you could not play video games. You got an hour to play video games. That's it. You had to go. And we were the only parents doing it. We felt like they could go to somebody else's house, and we were like, well, you can't go to so-and-so's house because you got to be outside now. You live down the street from the ocean. Get your surfboard. Get out of here. You know what I'm saying?
I love that.
Exactly. And then you're seen as the main parent.
I kind of embraced that myself, but
Right.
Explain Thrive to me.
So we came up with the Thrive model just because we felt like the different aspects of trust and respect and all these aspects of Thrive, we could bring into every part of parenting, whether it be we're talking about boundaries or we're talking about communication. And, for me, Thrive at the very end is enjoy. That's what the E is for. And so we forget that this is a time to enjoy our kids. This is still a time where we can enjoy every aspect of parenting, and it doesn't have to be a power struggle, and it doesn't have to be something that's difficult, that we, focus on all the negatives and all the challenges all the time, but to really sit back and enjoy who they are, what their personalities are, who they're becoming. So for me, Thrive, we have all the different, it's an acronym, but it's all about really enjoying our teenagers and appreciating who they are.
Okay.
I think also Thrive for me, when we first started this, so I love to write, and Angele is the person I've wanted to write my whole life, but I just don't have the discipline to be organized enough for a book. And then Angele and I started talking during COVID, and it made sense for us to write together because she really knows how to plan and organize, and she can also edit my word throwing on the page. And we created Thrive to kind of be a consistent piece throughout the book, right? So when I was writing, I had Thrive and the words, all 6 words written on a little Post-it note on my computer. So when I was writing and when she was writing, we always had these words as like, if it's not answering these questions like trust, heal, respect, invite, validate, enjoy, if we weren't answering those or speaking to those, then we weren't writing the right thing.
Okay. So the first thing is trust. That seems pretty obvious what that is. Do you think there are trust issues? Is it the parents trusting the kids or the kids trusting the parents?
Both.
Both.
Right. I think it's very difficult for parents to trust teenagers because they make, impulsive, poor choices quite often. However, it's a matter of how do you work through that so that you can go back to trusting them again versus just adding on to more distrust and causing more dilemmas in your relationship.
Okay.
I think it's also teaching your kids to trust their decision making, right? Like giving them skills so that they can start trusting themselves to be adults.
And trusting the inner voice as well. When your inner voice says, John is in front of the house throwing glass, and I'm with him, and I have a feeling that he should not be throwing glass at this house. I'm going to go home now. I have this strong feeling I need to go home. Trusting those instincts, I think kids are reluctant because they want to be part of the crowd. They don't want to be a dork. All right, heal. Does heal come in after something's happened, or how are we talking about heal?
So for me, heal, I mean, every family is not going to do things perfectly. You know, we had the COVID lockdowns and no one expected that. We couldn't predict that. We couldn't plan that. So how do you heal as a family when there's something big that happens either in the world, in your family, in your neighborhood? And so it's learning to apologize. It's learning to process. It's learning to sit and listen when your child comes home and they've been heartbroken, or they got a bad grade, or they got picked on or bullied, right? How do you heal from these things and do it in a respectful way that teaches them to heal themselves as they go forward as adults?
Nice. Which brings us to respect. It's got to be mutual.
Yeah.
Right.
So respect is a funny one, because I think in previous generations, it was just respect your parents, right? There was sort of this expectation or demand to be respected from adults. And we kind of take the angle that you kind of earn the respect of your kids, because I would not respect someone who doesn't respect me back. And so teaching parents to model respect, to respect their kids, but do that in a way that it equips them to be better people. Not just like, hey, I respect you. If they haven't earned it either, then they don't deserve it. But it's about building mutual respect so that your kids will respect you beyond the demand when they become adults. I have 2 boys now who are adults, and I feel that I completely respect them and they completely respect me. And I certainly don't demand it. I mean, they're adults, right? So as a teen, you have an opportunity to treat them sort of like, hey, you're going to be an adult soon, so let's build this mutual respect.
Nice. Invite.
Invite is inviting your child into a dialogue with you. It's inviting a healthy communication. We're inviting them to share their thoughts. You know, even we may not agree with them. We may not know what's going on. But inviting is about having this dialogue, having these conversations, even the difficult ones, so that we're not losing communication skills. We're not losing healthy communication. And invite is also a big part of that is listening. Are we listening to our kids? Are we listening to what they have to say, even when they disagree with us? You know, it brings in that dynamic of we're never going to stop this communication pattern. And so inviting really is inviting both parties to speak to each other respectfully and to listen to each other, and to, even when you agree not to, agree to disagree, whatever those aspects are. But without the communication and without hearing each other, I mean, we're not learning, we're not growing, and our relationship is going to really suffer. And then they're going to listen to other people.
Yeah, which that can be bad.
It can be.
And validate.
I love validation.
Telling them that it's whatever it is they're feeling, it's okay.
It's real. It's real. And who am I to judge it? Right. I'm all about validating what anybody might, particularly my stepson now, validating anything he has to tell me, even if I don't agree with it or I don't understand it, but to validate the importance of what he's saying, how important it is to him, where it's coming from, and his thought process. There's a rule in terms of therapy when you want to have a conversation and it's a difficult one, and maybe the other person's struggling to listen. So you always start with validation, of hearing what they have to say, and that is important to them. It always opens up the door for a conversation and for us to be able to actually talk and come to an agreement.
And we basically started with enjoy. So
yeah, I would like to add on enjoy, though. One of the things that I see a lot is when someone brings their kid to therapy, the problem becomes 90% of the conversation, which is way too much. Because then what happens is the teen starts to identify with that problem and they become the problem. Rather than saying, okay, my son has anxiety, but we'll talk about it, but we also want to build positive memories in the family. We want to go miniature golfing. We want to go to the beach and go surfing if we can, right? It's about building positive memories so that your kids enjoy being part of the family. That way, when you do have discipline, like you're grounded or you can't do this or you can't do that, they actually feel it because they miss being part of the family.
Right. Right, being part of the unit.
Right.
This is wonderful. So the question is now, yeah, okay, so you're both therapists. So I would think, does that enable you to talk about your book? I mean, would be, sounds to me, I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, a great companion book if you're going to therapy.
I hand it out to clients for free. I have it on my desk,
Yeah.
and if someone wants it, I hand it out.
So for me, I've been a therapist for 24 years, so I've got a long list of therapist friends and colleagues that I've shared the book with, who hopefully share it with their clients that could use it and benefit from it. And Stephanie and I have talked. We've been kind of waiting for to see where the book is going to go and how impactful it'll be. But we'd love to go out and do trainings and have based on the Thrive model and based on the parenting skills that we're talking about. So that's kind of something we see in the future and hope to be able to do.
I like that. You know what? Parents bringing their kids to that, introduction to college, a Thrive workshop should be part of it. Time to let go, Mom. Time to let go.
That would be great.
Right?
It should actually be right before junior high.
Oh, you think junior high? Yeah. Get them through the last 2 years of high school so you don't take their SATs for them. Right.
So how do you enter like sixth grade and help your child so that by the time they graduate high school, they have a mutually respectful, critical thinking attitude and are prepared to be adults? Because at 18, technically, they're adults.
Yes. Yeah. And you got to push them out of the nest, baby. Flap, flap those wings, right? I mean, it's sad. It's so sad because I'll never forget my nephew's kids are getting ready to go to college, and his wife is just like, I know once he leaves, it's he's gone, and I'm like, that's healthy. It's sad, but yeah,
yes,
they go to college and they don't really ever come home again.
Some of the book addresses like the grieving process as your kids transition through different phases, like going from childhood to teen. There's some grieving that happens there. Your kid's not the little kid that followed you around everywhere and thought you were amazing. Yeah. Now they think you're an idiot, and
embrace it.
They're not as happy with you.
This is a great book, and I really wish you both the best of luck with this. I think if you get the word out there, if you can start it in one school,
yes,
and just go from there. All right. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you.
Every single child should be able to find themselves in a children's book, right? But Linda Russell, a teacher of exceptional children in South Carolina, found that wasn't always the case and thinks we need more books like the one she's published entitled Katie and Her Magic Canes.
I have a cousin who I grew up with who has a disability. My first job ended up being a therapeutic recreation director. I worked with children and adults with disabilities back in Connecticut for 15 years. And I coached Special Olympics for 15 years.
That's wonderful.
So, yeah. And I started a lot of unified sports before I moved south. And our school is now getting into it. I ended up going back and getting my teaching degree and getting my master's with inclusive education. So right now I have a couple children with autism in my classroom. So they're mainstreamed in full time.
That's great. So Katie is
actually my great grandmother's name.
Okay.
So it was just after working with children with disabilities for so long and realizing there wasn't a whole lot out there for them, I wanted to see books that they could get.
So not too many books where the disabled child is the main character.
Correct.
This little girl has cerebral palsy, right?
Correct.
And what does she decide to do?
Katie wanted to get her classmates involved and decided that she was going to hold a contest for her classmates to help her design her canes. So she held the contest and she had a bunch of classmates give her designs. She picked out her favorite one and gave it to her doctor. The names in the books are actually relatives of mine. So she gave them to her doctor and they fitted her for new canes. And she was so excited that her friend Ashley had designed a cane. So Katie and her mom went into school and put a balloon and had a celebration for Ashley when she came into school the next day that she won. And Ashley got to go to the children's hospital with Katie the day she got her new canes.
What do the canes look like?
They had Santa Claus faces on them because they were for the winter time. So the next one she'll get is she gets them 4 seasons. She gets a new cane each season.
What a great idea. You should do that at your school.
Thank you. Actually, they asked me if I would let the kids design canes and, pick out the best ones.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
So what kind of reaction are you getting?
A lot of my former students have bought the book. Their parents have bought the books. We're going to have a book signing. One of my groups, we get together before school starts and have a picnic. Those kids are now 6th graders. I had them in kindergarten, but we get together every summer and have a gathering, and I get to see them, and then they go on to school. But we're going to get together and have a book signing.
That's going to be really nice.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Are there more books coming?
Yes, I have another one that I'm working on right now, but I've broken my arm, so I can't do a whole lot of writing right now.
Oh, is it along the same theme?
A different exceptionality for a child, but yes, it's going to be a child with a exceptional ability.
It's kind of disappointing, right? That there aren't more books like this for more children.
Yes.
How did that happen when we're so woke, inclusive, and are we all talk and no action?
I really think we are, because it started out where children with disabilities or different abnormalities were always put in a room by themselves. And now they're starting to come out, let them out into real classrooms where they need to be socialized. And I think once this starts, more people start seeing this, and maybe more books will show up that every child can be part of a book. Every child, and they should be part of a book. A child should be able to look at a book and say, oh, that's just like me.
Is there a particular reason you've been teaching for 15 years that you decided that you needed to do this now?
I started writing the book a while ago, and I happened to find it in one of my boxes one day, and I said, I really should go look into getting it printed. I had a couple friends look at it and like, oh yeah, you need to have this printed. So I went and did it. It was a dream of mine, and I never had accomplished it.
But you weren't the kind of person to keep a journal, or, did you write short stories when you were a kid or anything like that?
I loved writing when I was a kid. That was my favorite thing to do. And I would just keep little stories here and there, but nothing ever flourished from it except for this one. This one just really hit me that it needed to be published.
Now, you said you worked with the Special Olympics.
Yes.
Are you going to send them one of these books?
I did Special Olympics in Connecticut, so I'm going to send one up to them. And I'm hoping to get back up there during the summer so I can visit some of my former clients.
Did you have to do any editing before you sent the book in? Like, was there extra work you had to do on it?
I did a little editing, but the publisher went through it and did editing along with me. And we went back and forth to see what was right and what fit and what didn't fit. But there wasn't a whole lot that needed to be changed.
How was the process for you?
Long, frustrating at times.
In the end, did you get what you wanted?
Yes.
Any advice for people out there who might have a book in them?
Do it. Please do it. It makes my heart feel much better that I can now make somebody else smile just because of something I thought of. You can brighten somebody's day by doing this. Our school is doing Special Olympics now, so I would put some money back into Special Olympics. That and a lot more sensory items for my classroom, and the kids in our school can help with, use for.
When you say sensory items, what do you mean?
Like I have a sensory table in my room, so it's getting items that with different tactiles that they can use, like the little squishy balls and the poppets and all that. I have a bucket full of those. So it's just that I can replenish them, things that they can use during the day.
Because the school doesn't help you do that.
No.
It's the same story. It never changes.
It doesn't. We spend so much money as a teacher, so much money.
Well, I mean, especially with this group of children, it's not like you're going out and buying pencils and paper. You know what I mean?
Right.
You need some very specific tools, and that's all on you.
Yes.
Hopefully, with this book, you can get all of your concerns out there and maybe, put us in the right direction.
I'm hoping it really needs to be, this world needs to open up to, the new things that are out there. And it's not actually new. It's just an idea that was put aside and never let go. It needs to come out.
But there needs to be action. Instead of just talking about it, we need some action now. And
Yep.
maybe this book is a step in that direction.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Yeah. I thought this book was really sweet when I read the synopsis. You know what I wanted to ask you? The canes have to be very specifically made, right?
Yeah.
So you're technically not making a cane. You're just dressing it up.
That's all it is.
So what's your next book?
A Little Secret is about a little girl with Down syndrome. Yeah, and that's one of my. I have a little girl that comes to me with Down syndrome, and I just absolutely love watching her grow from my students in my classroom. So that really inspired me to do something for her.
I think that they are the happiest people and the most accepting and loving and giving people on the planet.
Yes.
They've got something no one else has.
No, they have such joy in their heart.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to that book.
Thank you.
All right. Linda, you have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank you so
too.
much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. L.K. White has been writing for as long as she can remember, and she picked quite the title for her first book. Yeah, I'm effing angry. Poetry, art, and musings on being 40, black, and pregnant. All right. I guess you've had a rough couple of years, huh?
It's been wild. It has been crazy. This was the thing. Back in the day, my stepmom encouraged me a little bit to like try to publish poems, and she would enter me into these contests and stuff. And sometimes I won. I honestly don't know where any of that stuff went to. I remember one claiming I was in the Library of Congress. I'm not sure if that's true or not. But when everything that led up to me writing this book in particular, it was all kind of accidental. I didn't think, oh, I'm going to write a book. It was just, 2020 happened. I turned 40 and I had gotten this job, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be such a good job because it's sort of retail, but not, because it was in the customer service department. But then COVID hit and everything shut down, and we were down for 6 weeks. And then they called me and they were like, you can come back, but it's not going to be in customer service because, everything needs to be like cleaned. We need people to come in and do like housekeeping. We only need like one person in customer service, and we already have that one person. And I was like, oh, housekeeping's fine. I did not know I was pregnant yet. So, a few weeks in, I'm late. And my husband's like, oh no, you're not late. You're just a little stressed because you're back at work. And I was like, no. And it's just like, you're a woman, so I was just like, when was the last time I went to McDonald's? And he was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, I was like, I said, when was the last time I had a quarter pounder? Because when my cycle's coming on, I used to be like, oh, I want a quarter pounder. Oh, crap, my period's coming on.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I was like, I'm pregnant, dude. And he was like, you're not pregnant. And I was like, uh-huh. I was like, I need to get a pregnancy test.
And at 40, too, I'm sure you weren't expecting, right?
Right. Well, this is the thing. I joked about this because my husband and I met when I was 19. I was 19 and he was 23. We started dating a year later. And it was like time just flew. Like we were just, I was like, I give this 6 months, whatever. And looked up and 2 years had passed. And I was like, what? I went through, all my 20s, and I got into my mid 30s, and he'd asked me, was I upset that we hadn't had any children? By the time I hit 33, 35, I told him, I said, dude, I said, how much you want to bet? I'm going to be like a 40-year-old mom. And he goes, well, so what if you are? Are you going to be upset about it? And I was like, no, babies come when they come, you know.
Yeah.
But no baby came. We didn't have any babies. And I mean, we weren't trying. I'd been on the pill forever. And then I was off and I still didn't think anything of it. It was just like, okay. Then, you know, 2019, he had brought it up again. And he was just like, are you angry at me for not giving you a baby? I said, first of all, sir, it takes two. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think I was already pregnant by then.
Oh, geez.
And I did go get my pregnancy test. And it was crazy because it was COVID and there were all of these riots happening in Atlanta. And I had to get off work and I ride the train. I'm going to run into Walgreens. I'm going to get this pregnancy test. I'm going to run back. And I got the test, and that test said pregnancy so fast, it said pregnant quick.
Oh, boy.
So I sat in the bathroom, and I was like, okay.
Now you got to
Okay.
tell work that you're pregnant.
Right. And so I go back to work, and I pull the manager aside, and I'm like, I hadn't had any morning sickness.
Oh, no, you lucky woman.
I hadn't even had any visible weight gain.
Oh, my gosh.
They were just like, okay. And I was like, all right, but like, I'm 3 months pregnant and I'm high risk because I'm 40 and I have hypertension. And y'all have me around all these chemicals. And they were like, it's COVID. You have a mask.
Funny.
Yeah. So that was their whole take on it. And I was like, well, you know, I don't think I should still be doing housekeeping because this pregnancy is going to move pretty quick if I'm already 3 months in.
Right.
And the manager, who is not only a woman, a mother and grandmother, she was like, you'll be fine.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And on public transportation.
Yeah, no, absolutely no. All right, so let's get to the heart of the thing here. So where does the book come in here?
That's when I started. I was on the train one day. Something happened at work, and I wrote a poem. I wrote one. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I wrote a couple more, as time went on. And I realized it was like every few days I was writing something. And I was experiencing, like I started, like I said, remember, there was no morning sickness at all. I started the stress vomit in the parking lot every morning.
Oh, geez.
It was just all bad. And I kept trying to express myself and nobody was listening. So I just started writing. And I was talking to one of the girls there, and I was like, I should write a book called Yeah, I'm Angry. And I was like, oh, that's a good title. I'm going to put that in my back pocket because I was like, yeah, I might do something with that. And then I looked up and realized I'd written a lot of stuff. And I was like, I think I'm going to turn this into a book. And my husband was like, why not? And I was like, okay. And he was like, okay, we'll do it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do it then. Because and then it was so much. Like they kept getting angry at me as I got further into my pregnancy for calling out because I was stressed or
Yeah.
I had to walk upstairs and up a hill to get to the station. And they were like, you're calling out of work a lot. And I was like, I'm pregnant. And I was having all these thoughts and I just kept writing everything. And then I put it all together and I was like, I'm going to figure out how to get this stuff published. And I did.
Do you feel good that you got it published?
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Do
absolutely.
you have a short poem that you can read?
There's one in here because there's two poems called Unmasked.
Okay.
This is the second one. I'm tired of wearing the mask. I will no longer wear the mask. It's tearing and breaking in places it no longer fits. And I no longer recognize the mutant it morphed me into in the first place. I'm taking my power back. I don't even remember the monster masterminds who welded this damn thing on me in the first place. I'm taking my power back.
That's great. That's great. Is there anywhere you can go to read your stuff? Are there open mics anywhere near you?
I'm sure there are.
But wait, now you have a baby who's what?
She just turned 3. No, we've been talking about it because my husband was like when he's not cooking, he's producing music. And he was like, I'm getting out and I'm doing my thing. You're going to have to get out and do your thing too. And I was like, yeah. And we have this friend who does a podcast. So he wants to interview me. We were talking about doing it.
You have such a relatable story. You know, what woman can't relate to what you went through?
Right. The workplace, especially retail, you're just a number. They do not care.
Yeah.
And being black and 40 and high risk, we're at risk for this stuff anyway.
Yes, yes, right.
And the place I worked at, I started calling the plantation house because that is literally what it felt like. It was a high rank-ish department store.
Yeah.
And I was just like I reported them to corporate, and corporate was like, I don't understand why you're upset. I was like, I didn't even get my full maternity leave. They cut it short. And they were like, well, you had your baby too early.
Yeah, like you had control over that.
Yeah, my baby came 4 weeks early. So instead of 12 weeks, I only got 8 weeks.
Oh, man.
It was wild. And I mean, I did quit. And the
Right.
next place I went to, she was also a mother and a grandmother, but she was like, you got to work weekends. You have to work a weekend day. But HR had made it where I didn't have to. And this woman pitched such a fit about me getting weekends off to be with my newborn child to the point that I was being harassed. She was just like, did you find a babysitter yet? Did you find a babysitter yet? Did you find a babysitter yet? And I was like, there's a pandemic, right? And she goes, let me tell you a story. And she basically tells me the story about how she was in grad school with a baby. And she left her baby with this woman to watch him while she went to classes. And he cried and cried and cried. But then he basically got used to it. And she was like, you just sort of have to get over these things.
Uh-huh.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
well,
I'm sorry, but I am black in Georgia in a pandemic with a little girl. I'm not leaving my child with just anybody. You don't have relatives? Are you kidding
wow.
me?
So many lines are crossed in your story. So many lines are crossed. In this day and age, it's almost unfathomable what you went through. But I'm glad you wrote about it because I think it's very relatable. So good luck getting it out there and do that podcast.
That's happening. Yeah. And we have a friend who has a gallery and she wants me to do something out there. So,
Do it.
and because I worked at Barnes and Noble,
Yeah.
I already have a friend who's like, "Oh, I'm ordering the books now."
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, you're on your way, LK White.
Yes.
I'm so glad I caught up with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready for a spiritual journey? Well, Mina Nemat will tell you we're already on one, and she's here to help us through it with her book, Yalda.
I was born in Iran and I left my country in early age. I used to live in Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Spain, Turkey, France, and United States is my home now.
How long have you been here?
28 years.
So you were a child when you were living all over Europe.
Yes, my teenager time. And then I came here to Fort Lauderdale. And still I have bad accent. I can't help that. And having different language, like I born with 2 different language. And I learned another 6 language, which is none of them is complete. None of them is nice. Even my mother language is not, I'm not talking perfectly. And my accent.
Hey, you sound good to me. So tell me about Yalda.
My book is about life before 2020 and life after 2020 and the transformation of the earth. And if we don't adapt and adjust ourselves with the new and totally different atmosphere, we will not be able to make it. So that's why I start writing the conversation in very easy language, talking to my 2 grandchildren. People was living in the fear, and I just write it 4 years ago to make them realize it, what is the truth of life, and there is no need to be panic. But in short, really why I write the book, because I see people sad and sick. And I said, maybe with my book, I can help them. It's like they living in the past. It's like eating out of expired can. What will happen? You get sick.
Are you talking about COVID?
COVID is the beginning, but basically the new earth, which is called Age of Aquarius, and working totally by energy, it starts by 2012, and we start seeing this transformation of the earth little by little, and it's a process of 20 years and then 200 years. And if we don't adapt and adjust ourselves with much higher level of frequency, then we will not be able to make it. And for whoever is going through this process of extreme changes, it will be very normal step to get confused at first, then get sick, either physically, emotionally, or mentally, until they find themselves shedding their old self and rebuilding from the ground up. That is when the house of sand will disappear and the new string house will be built. So my book was designed to help whoever is go through this process, get lost, get sick because of lack of knowledge. I aim to inform them on what is happening now and what is coming next.
What is happening now?
People in a stage of confusing.
What are they confused about?
What's going on? Why I feel like that? Why I break up with my husband? Why I break up with all my old friends? Why I'm going through the emotional sickness? Why I'm mentally so confused? Why I'm getting sick so much? It's all we are adjusting ourselves with the higher energy. And we need to know what will work or function on the new earth and what is not. What will serve us and what won't. Because the new earth, let me explain this way. Just like when we move to the new country, we need to learn a new language, new culture, meet new people. Basically start all over. Erasing all we know in the past, or we have known in the past. Learning a new alphabet, taking baby steps. In this world, losing ourselves and being reborn. So that's how we are right now. We are reborning again.
You feel that we are going through a transition right now.
Exactly. So do Earth. people, earth, and the people living in the earth. Like we are building a new home. And in effort to build a new strong, we need to demolish the old, which will create a lots of dust, Alice. Those who are lost will blame on others first, then themselves, next victimize themselves, forward by getting angry and blaming God, feeling like they are the only one going through this hardship. But we need to know God is not a man sitting up in the sky with a sharp stick to waiting to punish us. That's what the religions say. The truth is, where we are programmed wrong by religion, culture, politics, governments, tradition, rule and regulation, and propaganda. So we have to change all these, we know, and enter to new earth. In my opinion, there is a beautiful symphony playing in the universe. And as a conscious and walking human beings, we should know how to dance in harmony with that music. We must practice this dance, fail and fail again and again and again until we become a skilled dancer. We need to become a skilled dancer individually and in group. This is the desire of our creation, to make us perfect in our own art in this journey of our soul.
Are you basically saying we have to, scrap everything we know now and start over?
Exactly.
That's pretty intense.
And you feel it's pleasure. There is no fear, Alice. I know it's hard to move from comfort zone because we don't happy with our lives, but we are not moving because it's a scare unknowing. But we have to move to new hub, new environment, new lifestyle, and you feel it inside. Every one of the people in the earth, they feel something is shaking inside. And that's the process. That's a good thing. Our body is upgraded. Our energy level, the frequency of our energy is going up. And it's all good. There is nothing to be feared. And if they read my book, I show them step by step with very, very easy language, understand for everybody.
What's the first step?
Accept the truth. The old house is gone.
But what's the truth? The truth is different for everybody.
The truth is one. You have to reach the truth.
Can I just ask you, who is Yalda? Is that a person?
Yalda, that means the light coming from the darkest night in the year. And it's a ceremony every year. The darkest night in winter, when it really goes everything dark, and then the light the next day, when the sun starts shining, and put the light all over the people and the whole world and entire galaxy. That's called Yalda. And when I was a child, I just loved that ceremony and I love that name. So I named my daughter Yalda.
Oh, nice.
It's reborn from being dark to light.
Now, where are you talking about your book?
I was very busy with people in Iran because they most need it. They went through a lot of pain and war and fake news and everything. So I have a podcast weekly to talk to them and give them energy and hope. The language is Farsi, and we're trying to translate to English too, and different other languages like German and French. But I started having an English too podcast.
So you're promoting your book through your podcast?
I am promoting my book through podcast, but basically I am helping whoever needs to go through this transformation. It's easy way, it's shortcut. And that's how I teach them in my book.
When might this transformation be complete?
There is no end. It's 300 years from now. 10 years from now, if you look back to the world, we all don't recognize the word. We're going through extreme changes. Technology, collapsing of government system, everything. But these are not happening overnight. It's built the past 3,000 years, and it's take at least 20 years to tear down and build new ones.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, and it's excitement. It's really, I'm very excited to see the future 5 years from now, 2 years from now. We went through a very painful lifestyle. And these people born after 2000, the kids, they are the future of our heaven on earth.
Yeah.
They are building it.
Yes, they are. I agree with you there.
They are genius.
Yeah.
They come from different DNA than us because all our chakras is not active as adults. But whoever born after 2000, they have open chakras. And they are genius, all of them. But the problem is the parents already programmed and they program them. I hope not. There's a problem, there's a solution. And I just want to send my good vibration, my energy to the whole world.
Thank you. I feel it.
Thank you for having me, Iles. It's pleasure to talk to you.
You could call David C. Sharp a thinker. He wrote his first book entitled The Book of David during his last year working as a nurse in Sacramento. He retired in 2022 and now he's back with his second book entitled Seeker.
Yeah, I waited about 2 years and then I did Seeker. Seeker has a bunch of thoughts in it. Some are old and some are new. I'm still writing, but some are, the Book of David, everything is 40 years old. So in Seeker, there is old and new, and I try at least in part of it to put the old by the new to see the contrast.
And you're talking about poetry?
They call it poetry. I'm not going to argue with them.
What would you call it?
Well, they're thoughts. They're thoughts, and they are written in a form that I guess looks like poetry. The way I write a certain way to emphasize certain words to get the meaning through. Believe me, okay, if you want to call it poetry, I'm not arguing with anybody. But poets really work. They really work to make things very poetic. And mine, people like my writing, but I'm not a poet. It's thoughts. People want to call it poetry. I'm
okay,
not gonna argue
but
with them.
as compared to David, the Book of David, this book has more of a flow to it. There's a story. Is that correct?
Each thought can stand by itself, but the thoughts together in the sequence that I put them in the book tell another story in itself.
And what's that story?
Well, I can tell you basically the inspiration behind it.
Okay, that's good.
I have been inspired to raise the consciousness of the people of this world, people who have forgotten who and what they are, and are rapidly moving themselves and this world to the oblivion of hell.
How have you been inspired?
Well, I don't know. You wake up in the morning and you're hungry. How do you know you're hungry?
Oh, okay. So you wake up in the morning and you get these thoughts and you write them down. So give me an example of what you're talking about.
Human beings are problem solvers. There's always a problem. And man is a creature who solves problems. Life is a problem-solving journey. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So your book is about how you think about solving problems.
Well, in a way, each of the things I write opens up your mind to another area, and it takes your mind into a different area. It is to raise your consciousness. Now, I have a friend who I used to work with, a fellow nurse, and my book got to her, and she wrote back to me and said, "Your book is very thought-provoking." And I said, "You know what? Maybe what this world needs to do is stop and think a minute."
That would be a good idea. Think about what's really going on.
Exactly. I think to say that my book is thought-provoking is probably the highest compliment it could ever get, because people need to stop and think about what they are doing, because they are driving this world into hell.
Again, is there anything specific that speaks to that?
Well, there's the bear part.
All right.
It's very short. Let me find it. Okay, this was written on February 11, 2023. You are the pretty dancing bear. I am the master. Hear my voice. Put on your little hat and put on your little tie. Dance for me and watch the people pay. Dance to the music, pretty dancing bear. So good to see you dance and see the people pay. Dance on, pretty dancing bear. Dance on and on. No, don't stop. I am the master. Hear my voice. No, don't take off that little hat. I am the master. Hear my voice. No, pretty dancing bear, don't take off the little tie. I am the master. Hear my voice. I am the bear. I no longer hear your voice because I have ripped out your throat.
Wow. That's intense.
My writing can be intense.
Well, David, I hope you get some feedback and you get some sales and everything works out for you. You're going to keep writing, right? No matter what.
I will always write. I have a group of people, mostly nurses that I used to work with, who like my writing. And as long as one of those is reading my writing, I will keep writing.
All right, David, fair enough. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, and I want to thank you for doing this for me. I appreciate you giving me a chance to have my words, and I appreciate you and what you're doing, and I appreciate Page Publishing very much.
You got it. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.